those meeting could be only if some of the negotiation team already agree on some of the deal. So if Putin suggested this, it means that it's already included some of the condition of some of the deal. It's difficult to imagine what kind of the deal should be. It's clear that about the peace on the Ukrainian war, but specifically, I think that's more probably a truce.
We can also speak now to Sergei Markov, a former advisor to Vladimir Putin, has his finger on the button of what's going on in the Kremlin. Sergei, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Do you think should there be a Putin-Trump-Zelensky meeting?
Yeah, I think there's a high probability of this. And we know that according to Trump, it's Vladimir Putin now suggested such meeting. But Vladimir Putin's position is more or less clear that those meetings could be only if some of the negotiation team already agree on some of the deal. So if Putin suggested this, it means that it's already included some of the condition of some of the deal. It's difficult to imagine what kind of the deal should be. It's clear that about the peace on the Ukrainian war, but specifically, I think that's more probably a truce. So stopping of bombing by missiles and bomb from aviation and from drones. That's true. But this, because Russian attack more strong, it means that it's a concession from Russian side. But for the peace deal of this issue, we should expect that some of the conditions of ceasefire from the opposite side, meaning from American, European, and Ukrainian regime.
Okay, so let's just explore that. Because I understand what you're saying. You think a part of the deal has already effectively been done, which there'll be some sort of air truce, but that's a concession by the Russians. What sort of concession will Russia be asking for from Europe or Ukraine or America? Is it a recognition of some of the land that Russia has taken in the last 10 years?
It's first of all, I want to say that Marco Rubio, who told that the main issue is territorial issue, he's wrong. It's not the main issue. For Russia, the main demands is not preparation for the new war against Russia. It means that the regime should be changed from the current, as we strongly believe, it's political terroristic dictatorship in Ukraine, to the more moderate, more democratic style of regime in Ukraine, first. And secondly, the territory of Ukraine should not be used as a place for the future attack of another countries. It means that such kind of air truce should not be used by France and Great Britain and another European party of war country for the sending their troops to Ukrainian territory.
So just be clear. So you think that the requirements for an air truce might be the removal of Zelensky, the change of regime in Ukraine, and an undertaking...
No. Zelensky doesn't matter. Frankly speaking, for Russia, it's even profitable politically to have Zelensky, because Zelensky and Trump, in fact, they hated us. Zelensky legacy is very much under the question. Zelensky more or less hated by population of Ukraine. No. Zelensky, if Zelensky is staying in power, it means weakness of the Ukrainian political leadership. It's not bad for Russia. For Russian point, no changing of Zelensky, but changing of the character of regime, which is terroristic, neo-Nazi, we believe. And so, for example, the Russian language, the native language was the 80% of population in Ukraine, now prohibited in education and media and so on. This should be stopped.
Okay, so Ukraine would have to make concessions about how the government is conducted. And then your other point would be there'd have to be a rock solid commitment that no European troops would ever set foot on Ukrainian soil. Is that the point you're making?
Yes, it's one of the absolutely clear demands. It's also, by the way, not only European troops have demands. Of course, if British and French troops and other troops come to the Ukrainian territory, it means that the window for the provocation from Zelensky open. He could be very profitable to start the war again and already involved France and Great Britain and other European countries to the direct war against Russia. Also, another issue for the protection of the British and French troops, anti-rocket missile system, according to the plan, should be stay on the Romania and Poland territory. But formally, they will protect French and British troops. But in fact, they will protect Ukrainian troops from the Russian possible.
Okay, just finally, would Russia be willing to concede some of the land it has taken in the last 10 years? You said that the land isn't the most important thing, but I guess the question then follows is, would you be willing to withdraw from some of the land you've taken in the last 10 years, do you think?
I think Russian troops can make some kind of exchange. For example, Russia army now controls some of the territory in the Kharkov region, Sumy region, Nikolaev region, and Dnipropetrovsk region, which is not part of the Russian Federation according to Russian law. This could be exchanged with territories which formerly Russia, as Donbass, Zaporozhye, and Kherson, exchange could be.
Okay. We'll see where this heads to. This is clearly a very fast-moving situation. Sergei Markov, we're grateful for you for taking the time to talk to us. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
That's Sergei Markov, their former advisor to Vladimir Putin. Interesting that the thing that comes out of that, Kate, is that it seems that Trump is talking about, and Russia is talking about, some sort of withdrawal by Russian troops for a sort of land swap. That seems to be the thing. Now, whether that's palatable to the Ukrainians is a very, very different question, but that appears to be a thing that is more on the table than perhaps it's hitherto been.
Yeah, I think we probably need to start to see some actual things written down, don't we, instead of what's going on behind closed doors. But interesting perspectives there from both of those men on what is happening. And we'll hear from Ben Wallace, the former UK Defence Secretary, on what he believes is currently going on when it comes to trying to end the war between Ukraine and Russia.
Donald Trump could meet Vladimir Putin as early as next week to discuss a ceasefire in Ukraine. The suggestion of a meeting follows what the president called highly productive talks by his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, in Moscow. Donald Trump spoke about his plan to meet Putin in a call with Ukrainian President Zelensky, Keir Starmer and other European leaders. The New York Times were the first to report the possibility of a meeting. Stephen Erlanger is the paper's chief diplomatic correspondent in Europe and broke the story last night, and we can speak to him now. Stephen, morning to you.
Good morning.
I feel like we've come close to this before. How likely do we think a Trump and Putin meeting is?
I think it's probably quite likely. The Russians haven't quite said yes, but Trump says that they will. Putin wanted the meeting, if you listen to the Americans. Trump believes, as usual, only he can solve things in person. But the question is, what brings Putin to want to do this now? And there's a lot of confusion among the European officials I spoke to late last night. Many of them were briefed on the call from their leaders, and Trump was in a very good mood. And there's some suggestion of Putin even pulling back from some territories in return for other territories in order to consolidate defense lines. So it does feel as if Moscow, at least is, my interpretation, began to feel that Trump was serious about putting more pressure on Putin, and so the best way to delay that is have a meeting.
Well, that's
where we are.
Well, that's the question, isn't it, Stephen? Because is this another standard Putin concession in order to just baffle Trump and just push things down the road? You basically just say, "Oh yeah, we're really keen for peace. We'll have a chat about it," and then ultimately things get pushed down the road further, and then they can get pushed down the road even further than that.
Well, it's very possible. I mean, that's the great suspicion. The other suspicion that Europeans have, particularly Central Europeans and the Baltic states, is that Witkoff made concessions that they don't like, that Witkoff, without actually involving the Ukrainians, agreed to some sort of land swaps for a ceasefire. This is all to be seen. And of course, the point about ceasefires is they're often broken, and there are lots of reasons to break them. And ceasefire is not an end of the war. And negotiations haven't even begun. I mean, people talk about, oh, there have been talks, but there haven't even been, there have barely been talks about talks. So there's a long way to go, I'm afraid.
Do you feel likely that Zelensky will be, this could be a two-way meeting between Trump and Putin, but, one of the lines of thought is it could be a three-way meeting with Putin, Trump and Zelensky, which will be an interesting prospect because neither Trump nor Putin particularly respect Zelensky. So is that a possibility, do you feel?
I think that's the plan. The plan is to have a Trump-Putin meeting followed by a Trump-Putin-Zelensky meeting. And of course, this makes the Ukrainians nervous too. What's going to be decided over their head, what's going to be imposed upon them. I mean, Zelensky's position has been pushed by Europeans, including the Brits, has been just say yes to whatever Trump wants. It's the only way to keep him happy and to keep arms flowing. So I think Zelensky, he's perfectly willing to talk, but I think the anxiety is not to be there for a first meeting and then to be presented with something for a third. But, as I say, there's lots of confusion about the details. The officials I spoke to last night spent the night talking to one another about what Trump meant and what he said. And I think, we'll begin to find out more as this day goes on. Just
finally, would you expect sanctions on India and China, the secondary sanctions, which are supposed to happen tomorrow, if no move to peace is happening, would you expect them not to happen now? I know he sanctioned India anyway, Trump, despite all his optimism, he still then sanctioned India anyway yesterday. So,
well, he did. The big question is, will he ever sanction China? That's not clear. So this may be an excuse for him not to do that. Again, it's hard to get into the guy's head. He sort of tends to compartmentalize things, but he's been very wary, actually, of accelerating this trade war with China, because China's bitten back. So I don't really know the answer, but he's angry with India anyway.
So maybe there's more than one reason for doing these things, which is often the case when it comes to tariffs. Stephen, really interesting stuff. What a fascinating time to be covering this sort of diplomacy. Great to speak to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
That's Stephen Erlanger there, the New York Times' chief diplomatic correspondent in Europe.